Hi, I'm Dr. Shammick Kotecha from the Kotecha General Practice Study Club. Thank you for joining us again on one of our other videos about dentists versus COVID-19. Today, we're going to talk about the effects on the dental marketplace, sales, transitions, and associates. Now, before we start, I'm going to first welcome Timothy Brown from ROI Corp. Most of us don't need any introduction to ROI Corp. They've been helping dentists for over 40 years. Sell their practices in various parts of the country. So I won't do that. Welcome, Timothy. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Shammick.
The one thing I'm going to say is this is for discussion purposes. And if you really need advice, I would advise you to speak to your representatives because it's important. Don't rely on stuff you hear. Find the truth. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about, as dentists, most of us see our dental practices as assets. They have increased in value, and they're usually a part of our discussion in terms of financial planning, retirement planning, whatnot along that lines. And so we're going to go right into this. I'm kind of going to divide this up into two areas of where we're going to talk is from a dentist owner perspective. And then basically the second part will be dentist owner with associate perspective.
Right.
So we've got about 4 or 5 topics we want to talk about today. And so the first one I'm going to talk about is, let's talk about the market. So we are into over a month of this pandemic shutdown, and dental practices were at certain values. Have you seen any changes in that values of the prices of dental practice since we started this?
No, there's no change in value yet. The market became wildly overheated for the last 3 to 5 years. A multitude of buyers, banks love the industry, they finance deals, corporates coming in with aggressive acquisition strategies, and everything got, quite frankly, overheated. And I predicted the market would peak 2 years ago, and it didn't. It kept going. Logically, the market peaked 2 years ago. Irrationally, it kept going. More money coming in, more private equity, more accumulators, corporates, whatever we want to call them, and the market just got out of hand. Which was great for sellers and great for commission brokers like our company, but it was out of hand, folks. Enough was enough. So here's what's happened since then. So in the last 5 or 6 weeks, we know the situation, practices are closed. Yep. The 3 pillars, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to do this quick. Scarcity, number 1. There's not a lot of practices for sale in Canada now. There wasn't before, there's even fewer now. Scarce supply of good practices for sale. And what defines a good practice? That's another video for another day. Demand. Number 2, demand. There's just so many buyers right now. There always was a lot of buyers. There's corporates. There's people that want to have second and third offices, people that bought 5 or 10, like the small to medium investor dentist, we call them. But there's one thing everybody forgot about, and this happened in the last 6 weeks: associates. We're going to talk about that at the end of this, but there's a lot of associates that just jumped into the market. We'll explain why later. Okay. Remember, 1, 2, 3. 1, supply short. 2, demand high. 3, very low interest rates and a very, very readily available supply of capital. So in the last 5 to 6 weeks, those 3 things just all changed. High, low, up, down, doesn't matter which way they go. When those 3 key market metrics, influencers, and determinants all change at once, you either get a seller's or a buyer's market. And it turned into a seller's market again, against all wisdom and logic. Right now, it's a seller's market.
So
go figure.
Have you had contacts from your clients that are, deciding to sell their practice just because they don't want to deal with the stuff that's coming after?
Absolutely. Every time there's a major professional event, be it a regulation, sterilization, SARS, COVID, a recession, AIDS, it doesn't matter. I started with my dad as a very young man, so I'm almost 40 years in the business now. And you're supposed to say I don't look that old.
You don't look that old.
Thank you. I love fishing for compliments. Listen, because these events happen, there's always some major event like this that causes a certain element of the profession to wake up and go, that's it. I'm done. I've done it. I've done well. I enjoyed it. I could probably work a little more. I don't have to. I'm out of here. Tim, can you sell my practice right now during shutdown? And the answer is yes, because very short supply, scarcity, very high demand, thousands of new buyers have come into the market, and very, very low interest rates. Wow. Seller's market.
It's good to hear if you're an owner. because, you know, some of the other things have not been so great for us. Do you think anything is different? Like, you know, we talk about like geographical issues. Does that matter in this case when you have these three pillars changing like that?
Geographics always mattered. It's kind of the old real estate thing. The top three things that matter in real estate: location.
Location, location, location.
So in dental practice, you know, values and sales, sure, in the past, the big city practices sold for more than the suburban, which sold for more than the rural and the remote, because there was more buyers. But there are so many dentists in Canada today that we're selling practices in Wawa, Ontario, the same as we are in Halifax, Vancouver, Toronto. Because, and that may seem to ignore the principle of location, but a dollar in Halifax has the same buying power, if not more, than a dollar in Toronto. And banks don't see any difference in dental practices in rural or remote Canada because it cash flows and services debt, or it doesn't. So banks are one of the key support networks we have that keep values high because they continue to believe in dentistry. And we can expand on banks maybe, because I know that's coming up on your list.
Yes, it is. So, and what, you know, I had a colleague ask me who happens to be an orthodontist, what do you think specialist practice are going through during this time? Are they changing? Are they selling just as much, or do they have a different marketplace?
Sorry, I just heard my email buzz. You always have to remember to turn your email off, don't we, folks? I haven't had any specialty practices yet, and so I have no opinion on it yet.
Yeah.
Give me 3, 6, 9 months and I will, but I think that they're in a more precarious position than a general dental practice is right now. That's just quick opinion, folks. Don't hold me to it. Time needs to pass in order to measure gain, loss, damages, whatever, and particularly with specialty. I'm going to hold judgment on that one. There's just too many moving parts right now. I'm not that smart, and I don't have a crystal ball that's very clear.
We all wish we did. So let's go into the next area, kind of along the same lines. Historically, dental practices were evaluated on gross revenue. Now they were being done on EBITDA more than anything. So if I come to you, say I own a practice, I come to you tomorrow and I say, can you evaluate my practice? What effect will COVID-19 have on it? Do you think it will? Is there going to be calculations involved in it? Or like, you know, because, you know, that may be a question, someone who's sitting on the fence saying, do I sell? Do I not sell? How do you think that's going to happen?
Okay, well, nothing's changed yet.
Okay.
And here's my theory. The appraisal world has one of two ways to perform and calculate valuation and appraisal. We can choose one of two methods: historical or future. Our company's always relied on 3 years historical, always. You bought a practice 15 years ago, you remember the appraisal, 3 years historical, revenue, 3 years historical earnings, fact, absolute fact in the vault, that's what happened. Generally speaking, that's our methodology. So obviously I'm going to say it's superior because it's fact. There are other appraisal and methodology methods that use projected earnings, projected revenues, everything is projected, you know, whether they come true or not is another story. And they're using those numbers and have a formula that says, if all of this happens, here's the value today. It's far more speculative. The banks never liked it. They really don't like it right now. Mm-hmm. And there's a few few people that employ that method where I think all of those appraisals just got to be put through the shredder right now. They have to start all over. Well, we don't, because we never went that way. So here's what I'm saying. Right now, it's February 2020 from an appraisal perspective. Okay. We have to use fact, and I can't use zero as a method for appraisal, even though that's been the last month for most of you, 5 weeks. Zero doesn't calculate. I can't use that.
No, I know.
So I have to go back to February and go, that's what it was. What someone will pay for it, I don't know yet, but at least I have a solid, scientific, founded, proven, factual methodology to render my opinion. Done. You may or may not agree with me, but I'm comfortable with it because I got facts.
I do agree with you because I think dentistry is going to come back. It may be a little bit different and there may be some changes, but you know, I think people will come back eventually.
I don't know. Ask me in 6 months. Ask me in 1 year. When I have the reopening, recovery, regenerative revenue rates, it all starts with an R: recovery, regenerate, revenue, you know, reboot. When I know what happened a year from now, I've got something to measure. But I'm not using speculation, projection, and multiples of things that we don't even know whether they're going to happen or not. That makes an appraisal worthless in my opinion right now. And I'm so glad I never abandoned the methodology my father started 45 years ago, because I decided to stay listening to banks and accountants, not doctors, not investors, not private equity, not the wheelers and the dealers. I went, let's just stay with the old time-tested method of the last 3 years. And I'm so glad right now. I just think, in hindsight, that was a brilliant decision. And obviously, I didn't see this coming. Who did?
I don't think anybody did. Now, along the same lines, in the last of my practice questions from the owner perspective, in the last 20 years, we've seen a huge increase in investor dentists. When I started dentistry, there was maybe majority of dental practices were a single dentist, maybe a couple. Today, I think they're almost all groups. They're all owned by, they're single groups, single dentists or groups of dentists on multiple practices, or even the corporatization model. Do you think that's going to change at all? Do you think they're waiting to, like, you know, these big groups that are buying up practices? Are they contacting you saying, do you have practices for sale right now that we can take off people's hands? Because, you know, cash is king, and if private equity is getting into dentistry, they have a lot of cash.
Okay, everybody has cash. All but dentists have access to financing, so their cash is no different in color than everybody else's. Yes, it will change for them. I think that, you know, the corporate model has some culture challenges. A lot of the people that work there were working in a small independent practice, and then they were sold in or joined into the large system, the collective, if you will. A lot of people joke about they drank the Kool-Aid, whatever you want to say. They've got quite a challenge on their hand. Now, money's not their problem. That's the least of their concern. And money's not a problem for any Canadian dentist. The banks are still there for you. They'll support you. The problem is whether people want to do that or not anymore. And I think that it's been very fashionable. It's been very sexy. They've had some incredible growth, some phenomenal marketing parties. They've been doing all the right things, supporting research, faculties, universities. Wow, very, very impressive. I'm quite frankly jealous, and I admit it openly. I think that their reboot and their restart is going to look very, very different than a one-man or a one-woman operation who is in complete control of restarting the practice any way they choose and see fit. I think they're going to have some challenges. You know, there's always people sitting on the sidelines waiting to get a deal. That happens in the real estate market, the stock market, the dental market. There's no deals right now if I have anything to do with it, but you better call me in a year and I may have a different opinion. We'll see then.
Well, there's some deals, I'll call you for sure.
Yeah.
We'll see. The future is unknown. So now we're going to transition a little bit into a couple different areas, mostly about, you know, I've seen some blogs on this. I've seen some posts on different platforms. And even though I have associates, I'm not an associate, I'm an owner. Do you think that, you know, okay, why do dentists have associates, right? We have them because we can expand our hours. Maybe we don't want to see certain types of patients in terms of, I don't want to see children anymore. I don't want to do surgery. I want to slow down. So do you think that, you know, in a lot of, you know, everyone's portfolio is taking a kick. Do you think you'll see a bunch of new positions, like dentists coming back saying to their associates, saying, you know, I can't keep you as much as I used to? Are you gonna see attrition of associates? Do you think that's possible?
If dental consumption goes down, dental man and woman power will go down. Fact. If Canadians appoint less and spend less, consume less, regardless of employment, insurance, and everything else, if total dental consumption goes down, which happens in recessions, and we're going into a recession, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, dental consumption will go down. Therefore, we need fewer dentists on a temporary or a short-term basis. So I can tell you as an owner, I'm an owner speaking to you, a lot of your audience are owners, some of your audience may be associates. Owners feed their family first. I will feed my family before I will feed my associates' family, guaranteed. Regardless of my financial status, that's not the point. I've done pretty good, folks. It's just that it's mine and I want my money back. We've been subsidizing, like a lot of you. We've got bills that, you know, there's just the revenue isn't there to match the bills in many cases. So I really think that the Associates of Canada need to be prepared that they're going to be called back the last of all employees and associates and staff. Mm-hmm. I think that they're going to be called back on a slow, gradual rebuilding, very, very part-time schedule. Many associate watching should be prepared to not be back until the fall. and maybe not until 2021, and probably not anywhere near where you were before, because owners feed their families first. And to think any differently is not understanding how the lions and the wolves feed their kids. Okay.
That's true. 100% true. And along, and it's going to be tough.
Sorry, that's reality right now.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do?
Buy a practice is what they're going to do, right?
So here's your next question coming. Go ahead.
I think, do you think that a lot of these, I mean, you've already pointed it out, but I think that's where the enormous amount of buyers are going to come from. Is there's going to be
They already have
attrition of dental practices, and they're going to like, well, if I'm going to do this, money's cheap. You said the interest rates are at as low as they've been in a long time. I might as well take advantage of this. So I think you're right. I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see a lot more associates lose their positions because not lose that they were let go, lose because they didn't have the work.
There's no work. My column's going to fill before your column will fill. Shammick, if you were my associate and I still have kids or a mortgage or a retirement strategy, I'm going to fill my column before I'm going to fill yours.
I totally agree.
So because that's going to happen, what associates need to think about right now is career preservation. And I'm not talking income. I'm talking about career control and career preservation. And really, as an associate, if you think you're going to go back full-time right away and you work for that kind of principle, oh, good for you. And I hope you have that job, folks, really. I doubt it's going to happen for the majority. So you have two choices: set up a brand new practice or buy a practice. Would you want to set up a brand new practice in the fall of 2020 anywhere in Canada today?
No, I would not.
Enough said. So it's buying a practice is the most logical because there's still bank financing. There's a short supply of practices, but there will always be practices for sale. There will always be new listings. And we've put up 6 or 7 in the last 3 or 4 weeks. And if anybody's following the ROI Corp website, you'll see them. They're there. And we're getting high volume and high traffic interest because there's thousands of associates in Canada right now sitting at home wondering, oh no, oh no.
What am I going to do?
I don't think Tim's going to call me back. Shammick's not going to call me back. That's how they think. And if that's how an associate thinks, they have 2 choices: set up a brand new practice or buy a practice.
Or they've been on the fence for a while and they've been making.
I think the choice is pretty obvious.
Yep.
That's why we have so many buyers. That's why we're still selling practices in shutdown.
I saw this post on a blog. I'm not sure who posted it, but do you think associates going forward are not going to be getting the remuneration that they were? I mean, let's be honest, most of them make 40% of collections minus lab. Do you think that number is going to change if the dental?
Yes.
I mean, if overhead goes up to 75% or higher, you're going to see that. I agree with that.
There's just 2 levers in business ownership: revenue up or down and expenses up or down. Where's revenue going for the next foreseeable future? Up or down? Down.
It's going down.
It's going to be less. We don't know how much less. It'll probably be less 12 months from now. 12 months from reopening. Let's use that as a target date. I'm calling it 365 versus 365. The last 365 days until you closed and the first 365 days from when you reopen. Not 360 vision, it's 365 vision. Probably down. Okay. The next 365 probably down. Revenue down. Overhead up. Owners are going to make less. Someone has to share in that. My landlord won't share in that pain. He or she wants their money. The dental companies, they're probably going to make more than anything because of particularly the short-term supplies problems, refilling the stocking shelves. The staff, I have to hire them back at their previous wages. I have no choice. I don't have to hire them back at the same hours if I don't have the business volume, but seniority and wages have not been erased through this. I can't start hiring them back as though they're new hires. A new hire is very different. A rehire, I have to pay the same. Yeah. So if I'm taking a pay cut, doctor associate, you're taking a pay cut. And I don't mean in working less, I mean in paying you less. The days of the 40% associate are gone. They're gone. Sorry, this was the landmark that pushed it over the top. I think you're going to see 30 to 35% becoming the norm. Maybe on a scale up, 30% on the first 10 or 20 grand you generate, doctor, 32 and a half, 35. Like the more you produce for me, the more I can afford to pay you. And I will. I want to put my people on an incentive, but flat rate 40% of collections after lab is absurd. It's overdue and it's done. Sorry, associates.
They're not going to like that. Owners. They're not going to like that.
I'm telling you as an owner, Shammick, and any other owner that's listening, you have to renegotiate your associate agreements because this is the new reality of the economics of dentistry. 40% is done.
I think
Sorry.
it's a tough, our cost of doing business is going
I
up.
work for owners. I only work for owners.
So that's pretty much all I had. Do you have anything else you want to add? Anything that you think that dentists should know about in terms of values of their practices, transitions? Have you had any sales not go through because of that? Any prospective buyers walk away from a deal?
We've only had delayed closings. So pre March 15, anything that was set to close post March 15, we're just delaying closings. Buyers remain committed because better to own a closed practice than be an associate sitting on your hands with no career control whatsoever.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree with
Think
that.
of your mindset, Shammick, right now.
Yeah,
You own a practice. When reopening occurs, you're going right back to work, aren't you?
I am.
You got 1,000 ideas going through your head right now.
I've been working on my practice while not being in it. It's actually
What are associates doing? Nothing.
webinars.
Webinars. Thinking of opening a brand new practice? Come on, not now. Just maybe later, not now, okay? So just buy a practice or hope you get back to work with your principal. Just in closing, I want to say this. The Canadian dental public has a very high dental IQ. We have a very high propensity to appoint for dental procedures because you as a profession have done a wonderful job of educating us on the value of regular dental care. So Canadian dentists, give yourself one of these. You have a very, very high dental IQ in the Canadian population at large, certainly compared to many other parts of the world. It may take us a little while to come back to you. It may take us a little while to gain confidence in the sterility of your environment because we're all a little freaked out. We'll come back. We'll get our jobs back. We'll get our insurance back and we'll come back. Could be a little slower for some of you than others. Don't worry. It's all coming back. And if it takes 10 years or 12 years to pay off a practice purchase instead of 7 or 8, that's just like the real estate market. Why do you think we have 25 and 30-year amortizations for mortgages? Because the values got so darn high, it takes that long to pay the house off. It's the same as that, folks. Don't worry. A couple more years of principal and interest in a 35-year dental career is nothing. It's nothing. We're going to get back to work and we're going to do fine.
Well, in conclusion, I want to say thank you very much for your time. I know you're up north. Be safe. And, we may contact you again if some things change.
People know where to find me. I'm Timothy Brown, Chief Executive Officer of ROI Corporation. Thanks for having me on, Shammick.
Thank you. And, just the rest of you, we got some other videos coming this week. We're going to be talking to a lawyer again about some new updates to the CWS, and then also speaking to some bankers. So keep informed at www.kotechagpsclub.ca. Anyways, thank you very much and have a good day.